Yeah, diet's really significant. It can be a source of inflammation or it can be a source of anti-inflammation. We know certain foods really are pro-inflammatory for most people, and some are bio-individual. Now, in my practice, I get a lot of people who aren't on the standard American diet. They've already done 7 or 8 different dietary approaches. They're still struggling. So I end up going into, well, why with a really good diet are you still struggling? And we end up looking for infections, toxin accumulation. We look at methylation dysfunction. We look at several things as to why might the diet, and we look at gut dysfunction, like is there an overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine? Is there a parasite infection? Are there yeast overgrowths? Things that might make it so that even if you're eating a healthy diet, you're still creating inflammation because your immune system is your gut is leaky. You have leaky gut, and the bigger proteins are making their way through the gut barrier into your bloodstream, and your immune system is freaking out about that. And then you're getting autoimmune conditions and you're getting all this other stuff as a result of that. So sometimes it's not, I want to say diet's really, really important. And for those who have already done a lot with diet, there may be other things going on too, but I always say first,
Right.
if you're on standard American diet, that's one of the first things to change. But if you've been doing, if you've been experimenting, and it is an experiment, because some people respond really well on keto, others paleo, others respond really well on more of a plant-based, others, it really depends person to person, individual. And sometimes there's a therapeutic diet where we do an elimination window for 60 days, very restrictive. We don't want people to live like that. It impacts social life. It impacts ability to enjoy eating out and things. So it's sort of a 60-day window usually, depending on how severe an issues people are having, but 60-day very severely restricted diet, followed by reintroducing one food every 3 days and seeing how your body responds, is one of the best ways I've found for people to, if they're very self-aware and they've cultivated some meditation and some self-awareness, to then do an elimination reintroduction. And with that self-awareness, really look at how is my mood, my brain, my body, my energy, my symptomatology impacted by this new food I just introduced for 3 days. And if it's negatively impacted, take it out, keep it out longer. If it's positively impacted or neutral, keep it in if you like it, and then move on to the next food. And that can be a really great strategy for people. And then understanding nutrients, micronutrients, macronutrients, pro-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory aspects of diet plays a big role. Being able to have lots of antioxidants from brightly colored foods, and to avoid some of the pro-inflammatory industrial seed oils, and to look at blood sugar responses. Sometimes a continuous glucose monitor can be extremely helpful for people to wear for a few months, even who are not diabetic, to see, is your blood sugar going above 140 for any meal for any reason? And if it is, look at that meal and pay attention to what you ate. And some people find, hey, I'm good with like most stuff. Like my blood sugar is fine when I'm eating potatoes, but it's white rice, it's just not good. So some people can find that their body is a little individual in how it responds to different kinds of food, and then make adjustments based on that.
There's what you're saying, I think, is that there's no one size fits all approach. In other words, we all share probably the same DNA, and to a large degree, we're all alike in many ways. But I think what you're saying is that each body is going to react slightly differently, whether it's meditation, cold therapy, what you've put in your body, relationship to toxins. And is it fair to say that a functional medicine practitioner is really there to uncover it all? It's to put together, it's to ask all the questions, it's to kind of be a inspector or a detective almost, and pull back the entire thing, and then come up with a plan that is essentially designed for you based on your own body's responses. And that can be, I'm guessing, measured with test results. It can be weight loss. It can be any number of things. But is that kind of a fair assessment as to what functional medicine practitioners really do?
That is, and unfortunately, functional medicine, it's a little broad of a term. Some people go to a weekend workshop and call themselves a functional practitioner. Other people go
Hmm.
through a year-long training or more. So, and it depends on experience and it depends on what they're doing. And some are more dietary centric and are eliminating foods as their main thing. Others are more looking at, like in my practice, again, I get people, they've done a lot on diet. So usually I'm looking at infections, I'm looking at underlying gut dysfunction. I'm looking at toxin accumulation. I'm dealing with people who are a little more progressed and they've been 7 or 8 places first
Right.
and then they come to me. So
Right.
in my model of functional medicine, and I'm continuously amazed at what we find. That
Sure.
I still, even though I see patterns from doing this as long as I do, I was treating someone that just the other day. We got some labs back, and she's young 30s, and we saw D-dimer elevation, and there's some two auto antibody markers, and she's on her way towards uh, potentially lupus and potentially another autoimmune condition. And if we don't intervene right now, and she's been to all the conventional doctors, they've said nothing significant is going on that they can tell. And
Mm.
yet, we've found multiple things. And so it's very frequent that when we do the comprehensive labs, there's several root causes that it would be really, really hard to guess at
Mm.
what those are. Sometimes it is, I have a good sense and I can say, okay, there's probably an infection here. There's probably a gut dysfunction here. There's probably some, I get that sense, but I'm continuously amazed when we do comprehensive labs that we find 3 or 4 things that are really important. And then it's a matter of guiding on what are the most important, because if we do enough lab work, we'll find 10 things for someone who appears healthy. So it's sort of like, okay, what's the real leverage point here? What's the real thing that's the highest priority? And it's sort of like, if you even in mobility and movement, the real experts, they're able to look at someone's movement and they're able to say, okay, the arms are off, the legs are off, the gait is strange, but like, here's the one thing. Okay, it's in your hips. So your hips, do this, and then everything else changes. It's like
Right.
that with the labs, where it's sort of like there's all this stuff, but here's like the main thing and the secondary
Right.
thing. And then once we resolve these, a lot of the other stuff will just
Just
clear
go away.
up. The hormone stuff, the thyroid stuff, like a lot of that stuff's just going to get better without even addressing it directly if we get to the
Right.
core
Debate.
issue.
Yeah.
So that's the big art of it, is trying to find what are the core issue or issues, and it's usually issues. It's a couple usually that, if corrected, the global system reduces below an inflammatory load, that everything can start to thrive and turn back on. And then the body's self-healing capacity is amazing. Once the allostatic load, this load of how much is going on, the main things that are driving the body out of balance, once the allostatic load drops sufficiently, the body's amazing at clearing other things up and balancing things out on its own. So it's really, if we can find those major things, and for some people it will be diet, and for other people it'll be an infection and a toxin accumulation and a cellular dysfunction and a B12 deficiency for someone. And so then we'll just correct, and then everything settles a little.